Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leverage Podcast. And we have a very special guest today, Zack Carpenter. Welcome to the program, and glad to have you aboard.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it. It's always good to get on the call with you. So,
Absolutely. I remember our conversation from one of our outings that we just got to sit before we went to get our airplanes out of town, and just had a great get together there and got to know you a little bit better. And now that we've been Facebook friends for better part of a year and that type of thing, and love watching your life, tell us a little about, number one, where are you in the country, and what do you do for a living?
so I am based out of South Alabama, Baldwin County, it's near Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area. So we spend a lot of time on the water. That's
Yeah.
my getaway. You've seen that. So during the summertime, we're spearfishing and boating and doing regular fishing. If I can be on the water 365 days a year, I would.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you have one boat, or do you have multiple boats, or what do you got going
I
on?
have one boat. One of my best friends is who I dive and spearfish with, and he's got another bigger boat that we go spearfishing off of. So he's right on
Fantastic.
the water. Right.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, are you a lifelong resident down there, or did you get transplanted, or what's your
Uh,
background?
so I'm based out of the South. So originally started in Louisiana, New Orleans. And then when I was about 7 years old, we moved to Mobile, which is not far from here. Grew up there, and then I've been in Baldwin County for the past 23 years.
Very good. How far are you from Biloxi?
About an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Not far.
Hour and a half. Okay, okay. My brother-in-law was there for Air Force weather training
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago. So I went down there and had a chance to kind of experience that area. And I've
That's where we
been,
go to gamble. So,
is that where you go to Campbell? Yeah. Yeah, we had some fun times there. Jimmy Buffett's place, I think we were there, and Hard
yep.
Rock, that type of thing. Well, that's fantastic. So tell me about your painting business and how in the world did you get into this, and give me a little background on that.
Yeah, no problem. So currently, the business that I have now, we've been doing it for 5.5 years. Right after the last hurricane, I moved from a previous business and back into painting, but I've got 20 years in the painting business. So I've been around the trades all my life. From framing to tile work, floors, building houses, and then painting was just something I was good at. It just made sense to me, the process of it, the finishing of a project and how it looks and makes people feel whenever you complete a job. And so I kind of fell in love with it from there.
Very good. Yeah, painting definitely, there's a huge difference between a skilled painter and an unskilled painter,
Very
that.
much so.
Very much so. It shows up in the work that you present. And so
Everybody thinks they can paint until it's time to paint. So,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not as easy as it looks. I had that discussion with somebody the other day, and I brought this up several times, but basically, a professional practices until they can't get it wrong. And, and you have an eye for it. And in the painting business, you're coming in, there's roughed up trim, or I'm thinking of an interior
yeah, yeah.
residential job, that type of thing. And, you just know what to do. You got to putty this, caulk that, do this. Because wouldn't you say, I mean, in all honesty, over half the project is probably prep work, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, easily over half. So if you
Yeah.
mess up the prep, the whole job goes downhill from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, it doesn't, paint covers a multitude of sins, but it doesn't cover all the sins, does it? Right.
Correct, correct. And you can mess paint up as well. People don't understand
Yeah.
that it's not just slopping paint on the wall over good prep work. There's processes to that as well. But it's just like anything. Anything we do in our business, other business in life, if you create processes for things, it just goes like it's supposed to. And
That's
so that's what
fantastic.
we do is we've created processes for every avenue of what we do in painting.
Very good. So when you launched this, you said about 5 years ago, what was your how did you go to market? How did you start gaining clients? What was your methodology?
Well, honestly, it was to get away from my last business, and
Okay.
it was a transition that I knew I could do because a hurricane had just hit. And
Okay.
so when Hurricane Sally had just hit, and I was getting calls from when I previously, 8 years earlier, had a paint business, and people were already calling me. And honestly, it was just a stepping stone to get away from my previous business and to move on. And then I fell in love with it again, and we started building and we started growing. And, now I've got my teams that rely on us for work every day. And so my temporary deal has turned into more of a full-time building deal at this
Uh,
point.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in your area, okay, of business, give me a breakdown a little bit, just as far as I'm guessing you do commercial and residential. Am I right in assuming that?
We do. Yeah, we do
Okay.
commercial. We do a piece of all of painting. So we do residential repaints, interior and exterior. We do high-end new construction. We don't do any of the low-end stuff. There's just no money in it for quality work.
Sure.
But high-end interior, exterior, and then we also deal in commercial and some industrial work, sandblasting, specialty coatings, things like that.
Okay. Do you do like water towers
No, 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 no.
and
We don't do any
fences or
high
anything like
stuff.
that?
Mm-mm.
No high stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
If you have to
So
have if you have to have like lifts and baskets hanging from something, that's not us.
that's not you guys. Okay. Very good. That's good to know. And so in as you grew the business, did it start out with just you alone, or what was your beginnings?
Just me, and I
Just
was
you?
remodeling and painting. I can do all that. I grew up, like I say, in a lot of trades, but I wanted to really, when we really started dialing it in, and it became a company. I wanted to really just define who we were, and painting was what we were best at, and what my team was best at.
Great. Are you still using a brush today? Are you still involved in the painting side or
I try not to as much as I possibly can,
okay.
but today,
Okay.
today we were out laying, 2,000 square foot of epoxy flake on a friend of mine's, business. So
Okay.
sometimes I get stuck doing it, especially with as busy as we are right now. But most of the time, it's better for me to build a business than to be out there painting every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what was your first hire as you're working the thing? You're probably selling it by day and installing it in the afternoon or whatever you're doing. You're doing the quotes, you're doing the billing, you're doing the work itself, you're buying the supplies. You got to get your
Marketing,
truck.
everything.
Yep, everything. The typical juggling of all those things. And so, what was your first hire? As far as did you hire another painter, or where was your next hire?
So, like I say, we were remodeling in the beginning, so I hired kind of a all-in-one handyman slash somebody that could help do a lot of it,
Okay,
which is what kind of pushed me out of the remodel side of things because they just were not good, and it was tough finding quality tradespeople on that side.
okay, okay.
Yep.
So you hired that person. Is that person still with you today?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, okay. That's okay.
Not at this time. It just doesn't work out. And as you grow and you expand, they were not a painter, and we were starting to move more into painting, and it was just time to move on from that. Yeah,
Very good, very good. Were you getting more painting jobs than you could handle yourself within your first year?
of course. Oh yeah.
You were.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So that put
Yeah,
some
my,
pressure
my
on
goal
you.
was never to sit out there on my tools all the time. I've done it before. I didn't want to work 6 and 7 days a week. I didn't want to work 14 hours a day. Sometimes maybe it's okay, but not all the time. Previously, that's what I did. And so my goal was to hire, build processes, move out of different spots on that, have team leaders. Now at this point, we've got 7 full-time employees and multiple sub crews that go handle the work.
Gotcha. I see. I see.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And okay, so let's go into that a little bit further and say, okay, so now you're you've got more work than you can handle, and you're making your hire there. When did you make your first assistant hire? Did you hire an assistant in the U.S. or did you go and hire a virtual assistant at first in that realm?
So to start with, I hired two people locally.
Okay.
Two office managers is basically what their title was. It was to answer phones, schedule appointments. I hired them as an assistant, and I paid them a lot of money to do that. And one thing that I kept running into was drama a lot,
Yeah.
making mistakes on appointments, scheduling, things of that sort, and then just problems all the time. And I was paying them like $18 an hour, and I could give them 5 to 8 tasks, and maybe 2 to 3 would get done.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just did not work, and I banged my head up against the wall just trying to figure it out. And I needed them because I needed them to answer the phone and not miss calls, because that's
Yes.
that's how we keep business, is calling people back. It's the number one thing that contractors don't do in the trades, is return calls. And so I definitely wanted to hammer that. And so I kept people that I probably shouldn't have kept on payroll just to answer phones, and
I
pay them a
see.
lot of money to do it, which is what led me into my first virtual assistant hire.
Uh, just a question because I always, or at least most of the time, turn the blame back on myself. Do you feel like at that point you did train them properly and have system in place, and it was just a human resource issue, or did you get to the point where you had to develop some systems and put those in place first before you did a rehire? What was your situation?
So I will say there's probably both sides of that. Yes, I
Okay.
always take the blame for a problem.
Yep.
Anything that happens in my business is 100% my fault, because I missed something somewhere if somebody doesn't have it, or I let them stay too long if they wouldn't improve with the stuff that we do. And then I'm busy. I wear how many different hats? Marketing, sales,
Yep.
answering calls, production. And so you're wearing all these hats. And so, no, I don't have a ton of time to train somebody to do those things. So, but I'm always available. I'm always available for a call. So, yeah, I feel like I did some training, enough to stay busy, but not enough to really dial in what they should have been doing.
Sure. Sure. And I think that's a typical entrepreneurial, pitfall that we have. And I mentioned to you earlier before we started that I did a presentation today, and that was an issue that came up.
Yeah.
None of us. It doesn't matter who you are. Your systems are always in flux, and most of the time, an entrepreneur doesn't have time to document those and go through that process. Now, so you were in the midst of what I would say COVID time frame when you made your first virtual assistant hire. Am I thinking right?
Let's say it's 26. No, it was at the end of it. Everything was winding down from COVID at that point. And we're in South
Okay.
Alabama. COVID wasn't a major, after 6 months, Alabama was like, screw this, we're going back to work. So,
I love it. I love it.
so we were kind of out of that, that wave pretty early. When I made the transfer, we were just getting out of the heavy COVID stuff when I started my business. So, yeah.
Okay. When you made your first virtual assistant hire, did you have your any of your admins still there in place in the U.S. and
I
still
did.
how did you bring that person in? What did you have them do, and how did you make the transition with your U.S. based team?
So my plan was to keep my virtual assistant and my office manager that I had. So I brought
Okay.
Angie in 3 years ago, and I brought her in as an executive assistant to help on my personal side of things and to assist with the business, whatever me or my office manager needed. And like, it just went sideways with my office manager the minute that I hired her. She did not like working with her. She always had some complaint, because the first day that I hired Angie, I gave her a list of like 12, I think it was 12 items to tasks to do. And I was expecting that to take her days to handle, just from my previous
Yeah.
experience with giving task out. Because some of them was, some pretty steep tasks. 3 hours later, she was in my inbox and said, "Hey, what else do you have to do?" you know,
That is awesome. That is awesome, man.
And so she was out working my office manager that I was paying $18 an hour to, and she basically saw herself to the door. I didn't even
Yeah.
really have to do that. It just got, it got real nasty real quick, and I hate that, but I mean, I was dealing with all that prior to ever hiring my virtual assistant. I knew there were some issues there. My hope was bringing somebody in would either lift them up or take them out.
And that's really their choice, right?
It is.
Because, you were not saying, hey, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. You were saying, hey, look, we're going to up our game here. And you brought in, a rock star that really showed some things and really made it, a competitive situation in some regards, I would
Well,
say.
and I gave her every opportunity to
Sure.
use the virtual assistant just like I was. I'm like,
Yeah.
Angie's just here to help. Just let's take one task that is major for a business. We need to keep our fingers on our numbers. And I had been trying to get my office manager to do job costing. Here's all of
Mm,
my labor. Here's all my materials. Here's the job. Here's what I need to see at the end of this. And in 2 years' time, I never got anything. Never. Not one time. So I brought Angie in and she started putting the pieces together for that. And all the other lady had to do was just say, "Okay, I've got this." Put it all in one document and say, "Here's your stuff." But she wouldn't even do that. She's like, "Well, I didn't have this and I didn't have that," when she had all the access there. I mean, Angie was brand new and got it done in a matter of no time. So, I
that's
gave
cool.
her opportunities to just use that resource, and it didn't work.
Didn't work. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And
But it
that's
was my
that's
choice.
understandable.
Yeah.
So now you have Angie, your other employees out at that point, right?
Yeah.
And kind of self
Exited.
dismissed themselves. Yeah, and I was in our one of our meetings down in Cabo. We did a Cabo
I
get
know. I hate
together.
I missed that.
I know. We missed you there, and we're out there. I was sitting. We were out doing some swimming in the Sea of Cortez, and I got to talking to the CEO of Viral Marketing, and he said, I've just over the last period of time, I've had to pay out some major dollars for a wrongful dismissal that wasn't really a wrongful dismissal kind of thing, and because we have people that are in the U.S. that sometimes feel they got to press the envelope there a little bit,
Oh yeah.
and so it costs a lot of money, unfortunately. And we don't have that with the virtual assistants. You don't have that risk really, and that type of thing because it's a 1099 international, if we want to just call it that, agreement with them that they're doing tasks for you under that type of arrangement. And so that's very, very interesting. That risk, like you said, is something that's very, very different. And the production time, I'm really curious about that production time. So is Angie still with you?
Yep. 3 years later, she's still with me.
3 years later, still with you. What was your starting wage with Angie back then?
$4 an hour, part time.
$4 an hour. $4 an hour part time.
Yep.
Okay.
20 hours a week.
And 20 hours a week, is that what you said?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you outline, like in the beginning, can you give some detail as to what the tasks were that you delegated first?
Yeah, that's pretty simple. So, all of my Google Calendar, it was
Okay.
her job to keep up with my Google Calendar and make sure that my calendar stayed organized and things were put in place. And then I had to learn to give her stuff and put my personal things in there as well. Like that was a whole
Sure.
learning experience. And then my Google Drive, organizing and cleaning up my whole Google Drive. Then organizing all of my emails. Um, to get my emails documented, the ones that I didn't need deleted, and then folders for every email, broke down in each of its categories was my first items that I used her for.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting thing because that question came up in my presentation today. Can you let's deep dive on that for a second. So on email, number one, is this an email inbox that has everything coming in on it, like personal and business and
Nope,
everything?
I've got three separate emails that I work with. One spam email that I've had forever, and then I've got a personal email that only very few people get, and then I've also got a business email. And so that she keeps up with two of them. She keeps up with my personal email and my business email. I don't need her keeping the spam one. That's just for like if you have to sign up for something when you log into a website, that's where that crap
Yeah.
goes. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. So you've got those two emails. A lot of people just have all in one. I generally just have all in one. I have one for my different businesses. So my question revolves around, okay, you go into your inbox before you hired this person and this one I don't need to deal with. This one is a task I got to get done. This needs to be filed into my Google Drive. How did you train the Angie to be able to look at your inbox the way you look at it and deal with each email that way? How did you train for that?
She actually trained me, to be honest,
Are you
because
serious?
because my email was I open every email. I don't like having hundreds of emails not opened up. It bothers me. It
Me
irks
too.
me to see that. So
Yep. Yep.
so I would open them and then I would forget what I had in an email. If I couldn't do a search for it and find it, I would not even know it was there. Um, and so it was pretty easy. So now she categorizes them. If it's an important email that I need to look at later, I need to send to marketing or, my new estimator, I flag it with different color flags. And so she taught me how to do all that.
Now, is she flagging those and categorizing
Nope,
those for you?
I flag those for she doesn't delete a whole lot. I still look at my emails. There's a section of them she scans them every morning and there's a section of them that she knows she can just delete. I'm never going to look at this. I don't care about this. She's
Okay.
got a list of those. And then there's some that are important, like invitations to bid for commercial projects, things from businesses or contractors. I want to see all those. So I still kind of click through and go through those. So if I just click it and open it, she files it away. If I put a flag on it, she knows what color flag goes to where at that point. And then I don't have to send out emails everywhere. All I have to do is
Okay.
open it, read it, do my thing, and then move on.
Okay.
Yeah. So it
Because
just
I'm
simplifies
thinking,
the process.
okay, I'm sorry, say that again.
It just simplifies the process.
Simplifies the process.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I've been wondering how to manage that for some of my clients coming on as virtual assistant administration. And, of course, probably different individuals handle their email differently. And, I was thinking, well, a lot of them are to dos, right? And
Yeah.
so those go in a to do pile. And then, or actually, give me the flag. Can you run down the flag system you use right now? What are the categories?
Yeah, so red is highly important, of course. Like
Okay.
this needs immediate attention now. Blue is go to my estimator. So it's an invitation to bid or an addendum to a bid that we're already working on. And then you've got green for things that I need to look at later or, address at some other time. And then you've got your
Okay.
invoicing. I just leave those out there because she opens it up and just invoice. If it's a receipt for something, she's got a whole folder that receipts just go to. So I don't even have to flag those. So it's really
Okay.
just three colors, super simple. I have to keep it simple. If I have to keep
Okay.
up with eight different colors, I'm never going to remember
You're
that.
never going to remember what they are, right? That's cool. That's cool. So, just one more question along the lines of that is, so when you first started and you were doing it all yourself, had to go through your emails, how many emails were in your inbox every 24 hours versus now? How many do you have to look at? What was the reduction in your
I mean, it could
time?
range anywhere from 10 to 20 emails, and so
Okay.
now I may have to look at 6 to 8. and
Okay.
then I document them or move them over where they need to go at that point. I don't even move them. I just click on them, read them, do what I need to do or not, or flag it and go. And that's
Okay.
all I have to do now. So,
Okay.
and then if it's a
Very good.
long email or if I'm working and I see an email pop up and I know that it needs a response, I just send her a voice message in Slack and I'm like, "Hey, can you respond to them this?" and just, then I can keep working and keep busy and she responds to them as me.
I see. I see. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, let's go to your calendar for a second. So, do you keep a separate business calendar from your personal calendar, or is it all in one?
I tried that and it is a mess doing multiple calendars. Because you
Okay.
miss appointments for different things. So now it's one calendar for everything.
Okay.
So I've got it that way, I don't have to look at this calendar or she doesn't to see if I'm busy at this time. It's all just right there laid out for everything. And I still struggle with calendars. What I struggle with is my side of putting my daily activities in because that's where I'm struggling in business right now is still just me on production, sales, production, um, managing jobs, stuff like that. And so that's my next hire, and I've already made it. It's just going to be January before they can get here. And so just making sure that my calendar is organized and adjusted. And then if I have to make changes to my schedule, she can make all of those changes. She has access to my whole calendar, everybody in there. And then she schedules my time for all my jobs. Like if I've got an appointment to come see you for a paint job, she's already talked to you, got your information. What are we coming to do? What time we can meet? What's convenient for you? And she's got that in my calendar, and it just shows up. I don't even see it
I
till
love
it.
that. I love that. It's a huge boost in, I think, credibility if you have Angie calling your client and saying, "Hi, this is Angie. Just confirming Zach's due to come over tomorrow at 2 p.m. to evaluate, your paint job and give you a bid on that. And just want to make sure you're still available and it's okay." And they're like, "Wow, this is impressive,"
Yeah.
right? Very impressive. And so that's something that is huge. I'm glad you shared that with me about the calendaring side. Now, as far as the jobs are concerned, is she reminding you of upcoming appointments or saying, "Hey, you probably need to leave for your next one," or something like that? Is there any kind of,
I really
tactical
put
going on?
deep into it because I've
Okay.
learned to just live by my calendar at this point. So I get up, I'm up at 4 a.m. every morning. I
Yep.
scroll through, I kind of get a mental picture of my day, and
Okay.
then I just check it. Every time I finish an appointment, I'm looking at my calendar again. So she doesn't really have to remind me on that. The only thing she reminds me about are things that I say I'm gonna do. Like it took some time to get her to where she would say, "Hey, you said you were going to do this. You said it was important. You need to do this." And so now she gets pretty aggressive with it whenever you know, I'm putting something to the side that I really need to be doing, or I tell her that I really need to be doing. And so she reminds me of very important things or things that's not that important, but I said was important. So,
Sure. Sure.
yep.
And that's fantastic. I'm wondering too, as far as those go. So if you have, let's think about this. If you were to get a new request to do a bid for a certain job, okay, let's just say it's a residential job. Do you leave a message for Angie? Do you get on a Zoom call with her and say, "Hey, I need you to set this up with my client for sometime next week. Look at my calendar and figure out a time that works." Or do you put it in yourself and talk to the client? How's that all happening?
So the SOP now is that I never put my clients in. So because I
Okay.
make mistakes because I don't do it all the time. And we've
Understood.
learned, and we built SOPs around this is that anytime I get somebody, I can talk to them as long as I want about whatever I want. But Angie is always to touch base and put them in my CRM because she knows exactly what information to get. She's looking at my calendar instead of me just talking to somebody and saying, "Hey, what time works good for you?" And I tell them that when I'm on the phone, I'm like, "Look, I don't do time because I don't want to miss your appointment. I'm gonna have
Yep.
Angie call you back. She's gonna get all the information we need to where you're in our system. and we don't miss anything. And so the protocol is I do not put them in the program.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, Zach. So how do you communicate to Angie to do that? What do you text her? Do you call her? Do you what?
On Slack.
How do you what?
Everything we communicate with is in Slack.
Okay, so you're using the Slack tool,
Yep.
and so in that example, and we're getting real granular here, and I love it because I think this is where people sometimes get lost is what actually is happening with the virtual assistant and in the day-to-day operations, right? And how do you utilize them? And so,
People need to understand is that Angie's not in a big room, a call center that I've had multiple people in the past few months think that it's somebody in a call center that's working with multiple different people. Angie works for me full time.
yep,
Like she gets benefits. She's been with me for 3 years. She works for my company and for me, and so Angie is there all the time for this. And so I don't mind giving her information and passing those things along. And so our conversations happen all day long.
very good. Now, a question came up in my presentation today, and I was just going to pose it to you. The issue of security sometimes. So, as you allowed, how did you allow Angie to get into your email? I should ask you this too. Are you using Google,
Yeah.
Gmails? So you're using Google Workplace? Okay. Okay. So, what were you able to trust her immediately to take over all your email, and reveal the things that were going on and have all access to all that? Or how did you handle the security side of things?
So it was pieces of it, and I actually had a long talk with Brittany, my CSM, on this, on how much to give them because security was always a concern,
Sure.
because you're dealing with somebody in a whole other country, and it takes time to build that trust. I'll say
Sure.
that. I don't think you just hire somebody the first day and you give them the world that day. I think you
Right.
build trust and you learn that person, just like with any employee. You don't
Yep.
bring them in first day and hand them the keys to everything.
Right.
And I think virtual assistants are the same way. Now, at this point in our relationship, Angie could shut down my whole business, my Facebook, and everything else. Like, she literally has the back end to every bit of that. But it took a lot of time to get to that point. Now, a lot of passwords and stuff, so you were talking about security. So I use LastPass, which is a
Okay.
great password keeper. And so I can share with her and all my other virtual assistants a login that they never see the password in, and so they can just click the link of LastPass and I can share that information with them and they never see what the password or the username is. And they can log right into anything that I need them to.
Okay.
And let's say
So,
something did happen and I decided to let them go. All I do is quit sharing with Angie and all of her information is shut down. She can't log in anymore.
real good. Okay. Are you on Eastern time there?
Central.
Oh, you're Central time there. Okay.
Yep.
So, when you first started, what hours did you have her working since it was a part-time endeavor initially?
So I had her working mornings to start with, which was 7 a.m. to, I guess, 11 a.m. And then I
Okay.
found out real quick that I needed her for the whole day because there were things
Yeah.
that were happening, especially after my other office manager had left. I needed her full time because there were things that were happening in the afternoon, phones not getting answered. And so that's when I brought her on full time.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
say 3 weeks into it, she went from 20 hours a week to 40 hours a week.
That's wow. That's fantastic.
Yep.
And what other beyond email and calendar today does she have some management responsibilities with you, or can
So
you kind of
she
give us
she
an idea?
hired and manages both of my other virtual assistants.
Ah, okay. That seems to be a progression that we've noticed. For example, the owner of Sphere Rocket started out with Sharin as a virtual assistant, just assisting executive assistant, and now she's the CEO of the Philippines with at least 150 employees on that side of the house. Of course, those guys are physically over there right now, actually right after the typhoon hit. But so that's very interesting. So in addition to that. Now, what level of compensation are you at now? I guess what are we, 3.5 years in with her?
3 years in. Yeah. Right
Three
at
years
3 years.
in.
Yep.
So, what kind of compensation are you looking for at this point?
So now she is 650 an hour.
Okay,
Um, she has multiple benefits. Like I just bought her a brand new, Apple Pro laptop
very
for
good.
her 3 year anniversary. So she's got a new laptop, all that stuff. And then I give her 1 day a month off paid to go do whatever she needs, take care of things, stuff like that. Um, and if she needs a day off, I mean, she's got a kid that's 2 years old now. The her baby was born, was less than a year old whenever I first hired her. So
Very good.
yeah. So
Did you?
I give her time to go spend with her kids, and she's upgraded her apartment, twice now. So she's in a good part of town. She's up on a higher floor, so when the typhoons hit, like she's not getting flooded out and run out of her home. She's got better internet where she's at. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. That's always a concern, for sure, about those elements happening over there, because that's a fairly consistent thing that goes down. And so, okay, so she's at 650 an hour. That's fantastic. And now, at what point did you bring your second VA on, or second virtual assistant?
So in the beginning was wearing a lot of hats as well. So not only was she doing my stuff that I needed her to do, then she took on office management. She also took on marketing, and she's got a marketing degree in the Philippines. And she did okay with it. For her skill level, she was doing okay. Well, I was wanting to get more into the video editing, and she's just not a video editor. It's not her strong suit. So I started looking at that because as well as I do that in business today, you need to be on all the platforms. You need to have videos.
Yes,
You need to have
yes.
things people can watch. And so we brought in just a video editor is what we hired JV in as. And he quickly grew into being my marketing manager. Like if you see anything from, my white label company to my Cyclops Painting, that's JV. Hell, even my personal stuff. Like we do personal posts, and I get him to do little reels and wacky things on my personal side too. So
That's fantastic.
yeah,
Let's dive a little deeper into that. Well, before we do that, I always say that you're not going to have a Swiss Army knife person to do everything very well, and you found that out, and you
yeah,
tested the skills that Angie had, and kind of realized where she fit into the organization. You got the right person in the right seat on the bus, and now you made your second hire. And now that in the video and social media realm, I guess is what I'd say.
yep,
And so on a daily basis now, is he working full time for you?
full time. Yep.
Full time. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And what was his initial compensation?
Initial compensation $4 an hour. That's usually what I start people out at. You
Four
know.
bucks an hour.
Yep. And so
Okay.
now he is at 550 an hour is where he's at this point.
5.50 an hour. He's been with you how long now?
Pushing 2 years. So he
Two
came in
years.
about a year after her. Right.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing a similar thing to what I've found is that it's consistency. They want to work for you. You treat them right, obviously, like anybody else, and they're going to be there for you. And so again, so in the social media realm, there's a whole different trust in that realm because they're putting your reputation out
They are.
there for the world, right? And so, how did you handle that? I mean, were you really adept at social media and video to begin with, or how did you roll into that?
As my last business, we did a lot of social media, so I understand
Okay.
it. I understand how it works, how it goes, how long it takes for things to start working and building, and also what it should read like whenever you read it. And so, in the beginning, the first few months, like I read every post that was going out the door. I said, do not make a post till I've read it, looked at it. Now, I don't see half of the stuff that we put out anymore. So,
I
but
wondered about that.
we started finding some, not, it's not so much typos, there is still a slight language barrier there.
Got it.
Using the word kindly, that they are outlawed from using the word kindly in anything that we do, just because in the States, that's the first thing I look for a spam email. If I say kindly something, it's just a word that they like to use. And then the way that sentences are placed sometimes, you can tell that it's not U.S. based. And so
Yeah.
now we implement AI as well with what we do, and so he runs every one of my posts through AI and has it do only Americanized. I don't know the best way to say it, but American verbiage whenever they're sending out. Whenever he's doing the copy on my post.
Got it. And I mean, the South is different than the
Yes.
Midwest and the North, and it's, I mean, and in California or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's different vernacular that we use and different things that we do. We're not going, whoa, dude, totally awesome. And so when that never hit the South, I don't think.
They're
But
not.
yeah, so there's always going to be those nuances that you're working with. So I'm glad you brought that up in that world. So were you on all the platforms at that point? Were you doing TikTok? Were you doing all those
Facebook
things?
and Instagram was the only thing, and then my website. So Facebook
Okay.
and Instagram was what we focus on. Now we have TikToks and all kinds of stuff. Yep.
Okay. So he's brought you into the other platforms probably,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
Very good. Very
And then
good.
posting daily, like that's a big thing. Like as a business owner, let's say somebody like me wearing all the hats, I might would post one or two times a week, and then I hired so many marketing companies that were supposed to do this, and they give you the world that when they sell you on their programs, and then half of it never gets done, or
Interesting.
they're delayed on things. And so now I've got somebody full time in house that is marketing for me and my paint company.
Very good. It's interesting. Recently, I was showing my wife this the other night that I got a request from Facebook about 60 days ago. They said, "Hey, you've qualified to be monetized on Facebook." And I went, "Oh, I have?" I was like, "What?" I was really, I wasn't trying to do it. And so they said, "Do you want to be monetized?" I said, "Yeah, okay."
Why not?
And so to my surprise, I'm getting a $55 check here, I guess, November 22nd or whatever the day
Nice.
they pay out. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. And so I talk to people about social media quite often as far as the VA is concerned. And what I got to thinking, probably the biggest ROI of any business would be to make sure you're keeping in touch with your past clients and those that maybe you've done a quote for and they still haven't bought yet, or maybe they put it on the shelf for 6 months, or they're going to do it after Christmas or whatever the case may be, when the weather's better or whatever the case may be, and and that kind of thing. But you have to keep that rolling. You have to keep that top of mind. Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, and
Uh,
so my CRM has an email blast feature on it. So depending on what it is, like I never send something trying to sell anybody anything.
yeah.
We'll do, Merry Christmas or a Veterans Day, email
Yep.
that goes out. And so
Yep.
they just see us constantly. I don't overdo it. I don't like getting a bunch of spam myself, but for important holidays or things like that, then we send an email blast out and just let everybody know that we're still here and then move on from there. We do have people hit us up and say, "Oh, I was just thinking about you the other day and your email made me respond to it."
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and statistically, I've heard this in I'm a realtor as well, and in the real estate realm, I'm going to give you some rough numbers, but basically, they had done some analysis, and because you don't buy a house every day, right? Most people are
That's right.
7 to 10 years, before they're going to make a move or do something like that. So, when they use you as their realtor to buy the house, it may be a while before they either refer you to somebody else or they're ready to make another move. And so what they found was I think it was upper 70 percentile of people would use the same realtor that they did to buy the house to sell the house if they could remember their name. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, let's face it. It's not, we're kind of like, the emergency room. We took care of you when you had an emergency to get a house, and now we're done, right? But it's our fault. But I think if I remember right, of the people that actually end up using that realtor again, if they're in the business still, is 17%, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
so we can only blame ourselves for that issue. We're the ones that did not keep top of mind in those areas, right? So you mentioned a CRM, Zach.
Yeah.
What CRM, just for what do you
So,
use?
so mine is very paint specific. A paint contractor actually built the CRM that we use.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's called Drip Jobs, and it does drips to people. So, like
ah,
once I book a call with you or book an appointment, or Angie does, it sends out an email and a text. And then, it sends out a little email and text reminder saying, hey, Zach will be there at so and so time, make sure somebody's at home. And then after I do that, when I start writing the estimate, it sends out another little drip that says, hey, we're working on your estimate. And so he built a really cool program specifically for our industry.
that's neat. That's neat.
And it does
Uh,
everything from invoicing to keeping track of customers to being able to make notes on their accounts for their colors or anything else for that matter. Yep.
Very good. So, do you have any next steps in the social media realm? Are you, what's your goals there? What do you have going on?
Well, so my personal goals are to monetize more, because I,
Okay.
I got the same email probably about 8 months ago, and then now because I just do my normal post, my stupid post,
Yeah. Yeah.
my truck or my car, hanging out with the family or at a football game, and now I think it's about every other week I start seeing this message that says, "Hey, we love your content. More people are seeing it, so we're going to open it up and allow more people to see it." And so, like, the algorithm is shooting my personal page out to more and more people every time I post something at this point. Because they
And this is
throttle
the,
that back for most people.
yes. And that's the Facebook platform you're talking about?
Yeah, Facebook.
Okay.
But my
Okay.
Facebook is tied to my Instagram. So when I post something on Facebook, it automatically goes to Instagram.
I see.
And
Okay.
Threads
Okay.
now, which I don't ever look at Threads. I think it's a stupid platform. But, it goes there. So
Is your VA then doing video editing and posting a video that you send them to work on or anything like
on the
that?
business side. So I still
Okay.
handle my personal Facebook. Um, I, I
Okay.
I get them to make me memes or cool little videos that I see, or if I see a trend going, I'll have him make it and then I'll post it myself.
Okay. I
But
want
what
to
I
go back
what
to
I
something,
do what I do
but
use Angie for is Angie does have control of my whole Facebook account. And
okay.
what she does is you've seen my message that I send out on
Yes.
the white label side of things. I have her send because I've got 3,000 friends, 2,800 friends, something like that on there. I give her 50 a week to message with that thing saying, "Hey, I'm Zach. I'm a white label partner now. I still got my paint company. Don't forget us on that. But I also help companies find virtual assistants." And it's a very personal message, as far as I can tell, we've gotten good response on it. And so she messages and sends that out to all of my friends list.
Okay. That's fantastic. So, did you start your second VA out on a part-time basis, or was that immediate full-time?
I did.
Okay.
Because I don't
Okay.
have time to spend full time training anybody at this point. So I always started part time just to kind of get their feet wet, get my feet wet, see what they need, what I can give them, and then I only have so much time to give them, at this time in my career.
Very good. Very good. Uh, any difference in the language barrier with your second VA versus first VA, that type of thing? Was there any difference?
Nah, JV speaks perfect English. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Very, very good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I've even had one client, I urged them to, at least get to the point where they were interviewing, and they got in the interview room and they go, "We hired two people instead of one. These people are so great." You know, they're like, I couldn't believe the talent that came into that Zoom room. Right. And
Yeah.
that's, you have to press through, and get there. And of course, now we've got our results guarantee and we got some other things going on that are really great to be
Yeah.
able to, kind of I wouldn't say try it before you buy it, but kind of like that,
Yeah,
and work through that. So right now you've got three VAs. Tell me about you got a third hire.
I have a
When did
third.
they come on, and what happened there?
So as a business, like one of my main things that takes me a lot of time is bidding projects. Not so
Okay.
much the residential side and for the contractors, which the contractors kind of sort of, but I want to expand into the commercial market a little more. Well, a commercial bid is a lot more involved than what a residential bid or even a new construction home, because I can almost look at that in 30 minutes and have something sent out. A commercial bid could be anywhere from a 50-page document to a 1,000-page document, and there's
Yes.
specifications all through this. And so I have to compile all of that information. Then you have to do a physical takeoff of the property to measure out all the painted areas on the whole property. So there might be communication with the contractor, questions on, what is this? What's the product for this? Where is this page at? And some of those take upwards of 8 hours to do, and I just don't have 8 hours to give to that. So I hired a couple of people to help originally in the States, and it just didn't work out.
Mm.
They were very expensive and their work was subpar. And so I found, I actually, it took about 3 months to find somebody. So I told Sphere Rocket, I said, this is what I'm looking for, and they didn't know what to ask to start with because they had never hired an estimator or somebody that does takeoffs. So I worked with them on how to hire this person, and they got me two separate interviews, ordeals. And so the second one that we have, I met Jan, and Jan has a degree in engineering. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Hired him in, and what I did was just train him what I want to see from him on these quotes. And then now he started out part time, and he's been with me about 6 months, and I just jumped him up to 30 hours a week. And then I will jump him to 40 hours a week come January when my production manager is here full time.
That's incredible.
And so he takes
So
all of those pieces. So he takes all the specifications and he does the whole takeoff on the thing. So when I come to him or he brings me an estimate, now I'm looking at numbers there with what materials that we need to use, and I can spend 15 minutes on a quote versus 8 hours on a quote.
right, right. Yes, and I don't think you know this, but I spent about 13 years in the electrical engineering realm, and I know exactly what I was redlining blueprints and
Yep.
doing takeoffs for different projects in the electrical worlds. How many foot of conduit, how many foot of wire, how many breakers, on and on it goes. You got to figure all that stuff out, right? And you're right, that takes a lot of time. Yours is, paint and visqueen and tape and whatever,
Yep.
because I'm sure like you said, the prep is everything. So you got to put your time in there for that and everything.
On the different
And
products, because
yeah,
like they may say seal a floor. Well, what are we doing? Are we spraying a clear sealer on that floor, or are we doing a $12 a square foot epoxy floor on it? Like
right,
sealing a
right.
floor can mean a variation of things. So instead of me having to call a contractor and confirm what exactly we're doing, Jan handles all that and then says,
Very
hey,
good.
this is the specification for this particular thing. What do you want to charge per square foot for this? Yeah.
And you can break it down. He can break it down for you. That's
Oh, yeah.
fantastic. So w- sales growth has been tremendous. It sounds like for you. So from when you started, what if you can give us a rough idea? What kind of volume are you, if you don't mind sharing, are you doing here in 2025? What's going to be your volume?
So this year we are looking at doing about 1.25 this year.
1.25 million.
Previous
Fantastic, man.
years we've been kind of leveling out right around that 900, right under one, right
Okay.
under a
Yep.
million a year. The problem was last year I did a total exchange of most of my workers. I had workers stealing time from me, a whole lot of things because I was focusing on running over here, and I missed looking at some key items that I should have.
Sure.
So I wasn't making a lot of money I was running. We were doing almost a million a year, but I was making like 6%. profit
Ah,
overall.
ah,
You know,
got it.
this year we will do a little bit more money, but also my profit margin is much better than what it was because I have people looking at it now. I'm looking at my
Yes.
numbers. I can catch that now where I could not catch that previously unless I was on the job watching them all the time.
That's fantastic. I go down to Clearwater, Florida twice a year to a small business conference down there, and the CEO teaches it. It's $100 million company that does printing and postcards and production and stuff. And she asked me, "How come you come here so much?" And I say, I have to have time to work on my business. And this is a great thing. I can come to Clearwater, which is a beautiful place, and I can sit in a room with a bunch of entrepreneurs. There's usually about 75 to 80 entrepreneurs there from all over the country that are all different business types. And I can do some masterminding. I can look at my own business. I can sit there in the hotel that evening and figure out, man, what's my next step? Where are we going from here? And I really need that check-in about every 6 months to know what I'm doing and to look into the future
Well,
in a big
right.
way,
And you
right?
can mastermind through that same thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We got some great things coming up in Dallas. With the development of our 10,000 square foot facility down there that we're going to be able to go to. So we got some terrific things. Zach, this has been a total pleasure, as always, to get to know you better. If people want to contact you, what's your contact information?
I mean, honestly, they can find me on Facebook, Instagram, anything.
Okay.
Cyclops Painting, cyclopspainting.com. You'll find all of our marketing stuff out there. And then just look up Zack Carpenter on Facebook. Look for fishing photos or pictures of my cars. So,
I love that. I
but
love
yeah,
that,
and
brother.
then if you want to email me, it's Zack@cyclopspainting.com. Super
Very
easy,
good.
Zack with a K.
Very good.
So.
Where did Cyclops come from? I gotta know.
Okay, so I'm actually missing my left eye.
What?
Yeah, yep. That is a prosthetic eye. So I
No
actually lost
kidding.
it to cancer back in 2005.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, great story. Just a quick sidelight to that. My second cousin in Connecticut, I'm from Connecticut originally. He was on a trip, I believe it was with his Cub Scouts, and walked into a branch, went right in there, took his eye out, and he went on. I don't know what level it was, but he went on to win top rankings in fencing there in his area. If you can imagine, how difficult it is to do depth perception. You experienced that, but amazing, amazing. So yeah, wow.
And then I make it even more difficult when you spearfish because the depth perception underwater is totally different than what it is above water.
Yes,
It's
yes.
magnified, and so sometimes you think a fish is from me to the computer, or it may be 10 feet away, and so learning to judge that, so I can see where he could learn how to fence, but it takes time to do that
It
because
does.
that's part of the problem is things moving fast at you or away from you. If it's just sitting there, I can see where it's at, but that movement of in and out is where it tends to be a problem, and
I
fencing is
get you.
up close and personal with that. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
But I raced
All right.
sport bikes for years, and so I mean, I don't let it slow me down.
You adapt. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Again, Zach, thank you for being with us here. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Likewise, Paul. You take care. Thanks for having me on.